Introduce Amy. Amy is the Senior Digital Marketing Advisor with High Road Solution. Amy has 15 plus years of integrated marketing and communications experience, primarily in client-facing roles within the association and SaaS space. Her specialties include persona development, content strategy, lead gen and awareness campaign development, and website development and optimization. Please welcome Amy.
Thanks, everyone. And thank you to the Survival Kit for building the buyer's journey. So I know we can't do a show of hands here, but the assumption is that if you guys are here, you guys have either bought a marketing automation tool or invested in a marketing automation platform, or thinking about investing in a platform. And while you have all this great content, you're not sure where to begin. You're kind of staring at your screen in terms of maximizing the tool itself. You may be executing on very traditional campaigns at this point, but you really haven't gotten into building your journey. So that's what this session is about. Now, we only have about 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes to kind of get through this. So I'm going to talk really principles, practices, and really building a framework for building your buyer's journey and executing on it. Certainly after this discussion, if you have additional questions, we have plenty of workbooks, guides, and certainly consultation that we can offer you so that you can take what you're learning right now and then extend that further and execute. All right, so we'll just get into it. We're going to talk about four key things today. We're going to go back to the basics and talk kind of strategy. What are your goals? What are your audiences? We're going to take a look at a buyer journey footprint, essentially, and then dig into the four critical components to build your buyer journey. And then we're going to go into those components, one of which is the most critical, and that's building your persona or personas, and then essentially translating those personas into content and ultimately your content strategy, which is going to fuel your journey. So we'll hit up these four things. So let's talk strategy. This is a little bit of marketing 101, but it's still very important when setting the stage. So when we talk about goals, we talk about four different categories. One, in the association space. One, are you looking to recruit? So are you looking to get net new members in the door? Two, are you looking to retain? So this is all about when they sign that check, your promise back to them was to inform them about programs and services that are relevant to them. So are you looking to retain and kind of show that, that overall value prop and member value? Three, are you looking to upsell? So this is really, it works kind of in tandem with retention, but it's also obviously organizationally self-serving. So this is really, okay, we have to get to the members with these programs, but we also have revenue goals that we have to meet, essentially selling a conference or a webinar. So upsell is a little bit different. And then certainly advocate. So this is about informing members. This could be informing them to become champions and promote your organization, or it could be about evoking some sort of change in the industry itself. So just industry advocacy, essentially. When I talk about goals, I recognize that there could be more than one goal. So essentially, upsell and retain. You could have a primary and a secondary. I highly encourage you, when you're thinking through and kind of recording what you're going to do with this buyer journey, that you stick to one goal. You identify that primary and you kind of home into that primary goal, because it's really, really going to drive your journey. So those are goals. Now we're going to move into audiences. Four different classifications in the association world for audiences. One is members. So these are paid members, not necessarily kind of the basic membership where you fill out the form of first name, last name, email, and there's no transaction involved. This is truly paid membership. Active members, and so this is your definition of who's active in the community itself. It could be a volunteer, it could be volunteers, it could be board members, it could be somebody that's attended the conference for the last 4 years. Anybody that truly is invested in your organization. Obviously, you would speak to them differently than you would a member. Customers. So this could be anybody that's purchased from you in the past, maybe somebody that attended a conference within the last 2 to 3 years. So they have a familiarity with your group, but they're not yet sold on membership. They see value. They're a little bit of a warm lead at this point. And then you have your prospects, which you will talk to very differently from your customers, because prospects could be somebody that attended a conference a decade ago, and you haven't heard from them since necessarily. They may have some familiarity or no familiarity, but regardless, you have to treat them as a true prospect and nurture them in a different way than you would a customer or a member. So these are kind of just the different categories just to think through in terms of audiences. Once again, you may have a primary and a secondary audience. I would think of audience as per campaign. So I would definitely, if you have a primary and secondary, then tackle your primary first and then move on to your secondary. So those are audiences. Metrics. So the clear delineation with any marketing automation platforms and benefits of a marketing automation platform is that you're getting away from the traditional, it's inclusive of, but you're getting away from the traditional reporting of opens and clicks. So more than likely, if you're engaging with a marketing automation platform and you're building a buyer's journey, you're going to be looking at success through all different metrics lens. We compartmentalize it into 4 different areas. 1, engagement. So this is your traditional method. This is clicks and opens. 2, the very definition of inbound marketing is a lead is anybody that's filled out a form. Now, if you're in person, it could be somebody that's come up to your booth and requested information or provided their business card. They are engaging with you. So are you looking to measure by a lead? Are you looking to measure by conversation? So this is social activity. Is somebody following? Is somebody liking, et cetera, et cetera? Or finally, are you looking to convert? So this is where a transaction comes in, and it could be in the form of in the form of membership acquisition, or it could be in the form of fundraising or a donation. So metrics and audiences, there may be more than one, and most likely when you're building your buyer's journey, it is going to be more than one. Keeping kind of all these, the goals, the audiences, the channels, and the metrics, you want to make sure that everything is recorded. This is so important. Don't just have the conversation, make sure it's recorded. I do have a nice little helpful workbook for you if anybody should want it, just to drill in a little bit, just to make sure you're capturing this information up front. All of this is going to help you setting up and teeing up your journey. Channels as well. Once again, key differentiator with a marketing automation tool is you can access all of your channels. You can consolidate all your channels. You can report out on all your channels. And what's important here is what you want to think of is, where are you going to push your content? Where are you going to place your lead magnet? Are you going to send an outbound email to maybe a customer list? Are you going to post your lead magnet on your website? Are you going to post it organically in social media? Or are you going to secure paid advertising to push out that content? So just something to keep in mind. Once again, more than likely it's going to be a lot of these, if not all, but you definitely want to make sure you're tracking this. All right, so you have kind of the fundamentals. Once again, if you'd like to learn more, if you'd like a workbook, then just get in touch with me. From a journey standpoint, we're going to kind of dive into what a journey looks like and the components itself. So here is the buyer journey footprint. And the best way, consider this your vision board for building out a buyer's journey. Whereas if you're looking at maybe traditional methods or working within the confines of an email platform, at the front end here, you would start with a list. With a buyer's journey, you're really starting with content. So you're pulling together your content based on your persona needs. You're disseminating that content through the channels. You're gating your content so that they in exchange can give you information or their contact information. Once you have that content out there and you've kind of fished them out or captured them, now they're in your funnel, essentially. So now you have the chance to learn about them, and you can learn about them through the form. You want to make sure that within the form you have persona identifying questions. And what I mean by that is just an example. I'm a marketer by nature, so I'm going to be interested in maybe digital marketing, a digital marketing handbook, or this or that. I download that handbook. In return, I put in first name, last name, email, very basic information. Let's say it's American Marketing Association that's recruiting me. They want to know more than just my first name, last name, email. They want to know whether I'm a good fit for their organization. So a persona identifying question would be, what's your job function? As simple as that. Then they know, okay, they're interested. Not only are they interested, but they're a good fit. So you learn about them. And then what you know about them, then you start educating them. And you don't necessarily educate them on you or your organization. You educate them on how to do better, how to be better at their job. So you kind of start gaining trust. You become a confidant, essentially. So once you've learned about them, then you've educated them. This is the point where you can say, okay, you either fit with my persona, or you don't, or you're engaged or you're not. So this is where you can start filtering them out. It seems harsh, but why waste the resources on those that aren't interested or not a good fit, when you can kind of reallocate those resources that those are more your core. So you start disqualifying at this place right here. Once you've disqualified, then you're at the point, just kind of looking back at everything. You've learned about them, so you know who they are. You have gained their trust by giving them education. You've disqualified them in some cases, so kind of funneled them out. Now it's time to say, hey, I know you. I've gained your trust. Here's what I think you need, and here's how this aligns with my programs and services. So really, this is really where you're providing the solutions to their biggest challenges. And you're saying, it's all behind my brand. Finally, after you've given them what they need, then you're in a position to say, we know each other. This is kind of a mutually beneficial relationship. And here's where the ask comes in, essentially. Do you want to attend this conference? Do you want to sign up for membership? Do you want to donate money? Whatever conversion means for you. So once again, this is kind of the aspirational or your vision board for the journey itself. So now I'm going to go into the 4 components of reaching this journey. So 4 critical pieces. 1, personas, and I always say that this is the crux of everything. Once again, marketing 101, know your audience. But the persona exercise and building personas, it's not complicated, but it is thorough. So I'll dive into that a little bit more. And then once you have your personas, how do you translate the needs of those personas into a content strategy? So this includes content ideation, kind of content theming, content mapping to your programming and what you can offer. Even who's going to create the content if not created already. Once you have your content strategy in place and you've identified the assets or what exists, what doesn't exist, and the assets and formats that you want to deliver this content, now it's time to start building. So now you're building out your assets, and that could be emails, forms, landing pages, and then your actual content pieces, a handbook, a webinar, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, once you've gone through, once you've pulled together your assets, the workflow is about bringing everything in together. So I'll note too that the personas, everything on the left-hand side, the personas and the content, this is all done outside of the platform itself. So this is all set up. It's all strategic work done outside of the platform. It's not until you get to the assets and workflows stages that you're literally tinkering in the platform. So when you're at the workflow stage, this is literally when you say, I have all my pieces, I'm going to pull them all together, and I'm going to kind of tinker around and build my journey in the actual platform itself. So these are the 4 integral pieces. I'm going to dive into personas. Because once again, this is kind of your launching pad, essentially. For those that don't necessarily know what a persona is, I always call this kind of the supersized version of your basic audience segmentation. So I think associations are really good about going through intricate audience segmentation efforts where they're collecting demographics. And frankly, associations have a lot of information, with their member constituents and even customer and prospects. But this is really about bringing everything together. A persona truly is essentially identifying your ideal member or members, just based on themes and overlaps in what you're seeing out in the market. So here are some persona categories to explore when rounding out your personas. Once again, I do have a nice little exercise for this, but these are the basic principles. Demographics, we all have this. Basic audience segmentation info, but you want to go a step further. So you want to get into soft skills. You want to figure out what their goals are. You want to see why they may not join, figure out kind of their opportunity areas and what plagues them every day. I liken a persona exercise to maybe, obviously you don't have the ability to do this, but sitting down with somebody with your persona and having, sitting down for like an hour and having coffee and really getting into their nuances and kind of what makes them tick and kind of where they're held to the fire every day. That's really about what I mean when building a persona profile. So you have kind of all the categories, the key categories that you want to hit. Here are essentially, how do you get to these categories? So here are essentially the building blocks for these personas. And I guess it's pretty relevant for today that we start with the heart for empathy. I know it sounds really touchy-feely, but you really do. You need to empathize. So you really need to sit in your personas or your constituents' shoes or their seat, their office chair, and really think through. Sorry about that, guys. Got a little pop up there. And really think through what drives them and what they're looking to achieve. You need to put on that hat and kind of think through that lens. Research. I know associations have tons of research. So member needs surveys, member assessment surveys, customer needs surveys. You can tap into that research to start collecting this information and rounding out your personas. Secondary research, I rely heavily on secondary research. I call this kind of the creep factor, where I will literally look at a member list, a customer list, or a prospect list, and I'll cherry pick names and job functions, and I'll literally go onto LinkedIn and look at their profiles, and that tells me, that gives me a lot of information. Kind of one-upping and formalizing the creep factor is interviews. So you can actually do the same, go through the same effort of looking at your member list, your customer list, your prospect list. Scheduling interviews, you can schedule a conference call. It could take no more than 10 minutes. Have a series of questions. I certainly have some recommended questions, and ask them kind of what makes you tick. What do you need to do your job? This isn't just helpful from a persona perspective, but you can actually get ideas and content straight from these interviews. And then finally, whatever platform you're on, whether it's an email platform or a marketing or automation platform or whatever's in your tech stack, your AMS, do a data dive. You have the data, you have the behavioral data, you have demographic data. Start looking at your data and seeing what it tells you. And then finally, lean on consultants like us. So it is very easy, and I've seen this happen, where staff will conduct their persona exercise internally, and they already have biases. They have a board member in mind in the back of their head, and they build a persona around that. Well, guess what? The board member, that's not the ideal. That's more of an active member, and if you're looking to recruit, it's not necessarily representative of who you're going for. So sometimes having those third parties come in and do that assessment and do that unbiased work is helpful. So by no means these are kind of the building blocks. Cherry pick what you need. I understand budget constraints and this and that. It's what you have kind of at your fingertips, what you can tap into, and what makes sense for your group. So those are the building blocks for personas, and this is a very abstract view of kind of the output of what you would get. But ultimately, when you go through these efforts, there's going to be more than one persona that pops up based on what your goals are. So I call this the persona matrix, essentially. And when you're thinking about, okay, what dictates a persona, think through how is this person? So in other words, how does blue persona here, how is he or she going to consume content differently than green persona over here? If there is a difference in how they're consuming content, both marketing content and programmatic content like a conference, then that dictates a different persona. So set up your persona matrix. Once again, there's plenty of exercises that we can help you with on this. I highly, while you may have your broad view of your personas, I highly recommend moving forward with one persona. Reason being, this is your assumed first buyer journey. You want to make sure that you're doing it right and you're focusing your efforts in the right place. So in other words, just don't bite off more than you can chew. Maybe you can do two. I would say let's just focus on one. There are ways that you can do this. You can certainly prioritize based on revenue. So what persona is most likely to bring in the most revenue? And this is not to say you're going to alienate the rest of them. It's just who are we going to start with? So you look at revenue, who's going to bring in the most revenue and who's going to be the most attainable. And this is based on, okay, what are their needs and where do we have the programmatic content, the member value that's going to feed into those needs? Those two aspects, then you can start prioritizing and pick out which persona you're going to move forward with. So once you have your persona, now you want to translate that persona into content, essentially. And this is the basis for content theming or building your content strategy. So I'm going to use myself. I'm going to pick on myself and kind of do a very Cliff's Notes version of what my persona profile could look like, just for the purpose of this effort. So let's take a look at my persona traits. I am a marketer by nature. I'm a consultant by nature. So if you're looking at my soft skills and attributes, I'm entrepreneurial, I'm visionary, and I'm business-minded. From a goals perspective, my role, what I'm looking to achieve, is educate associations about marketing automation and content strategy and lead gen tools. I want to equip them with the tools to grow and retain membership. And then certainly while all this is happening, I want to stay ahead. So I want to keep my expertise honed and sharp and up to date. From an opportunity standpoint, I want to network with other industry experts, obviously, those in the field, those that I can kind of talk shop with. I want to grow my organization's business as part of my role. That's one of my goals. And then I certainly want to get visibility with other associations. From a challenge standpoint, I want to find the time to do all of this. I want to get associations past change aversion. And I want to get marketing teams to start to think differently about how they go to market. So with all this said, focus in on you could, in theory, create from each of these bullets, and there could be multiple bullets in multiple categories. You could create a piece of content or use that bullet to turn it into a content or a content asset with every one of these bullets. But for the purpose of this effort, focusing on the ones in colors. So now I'm going to turn those needs into content. So just literally pulling out the ones in color. Soft skills and attributes, visionary. So a good piece for me, top 10 trends or top trends in digital marketing, something that's future forward or at least hot right now. From a goals standpoint, I want to keep my expertise honed and up to date. So a great content piece for me would be more tactical, more execution and tool-oriented, latest tricks and tools in the digital ecosystem. Opportunity areas, I want to get visibility with other associations. So great content pieces. Hey, here's a list of upcoming association marketing events in the area. And then finally, a challenge for me is getting associations past change aversion. So a great asset for me would be change management practices and disciplines within the association world. So these are just, obviously, once again, this is a snapshot, a Cliff Notes version, and it can be a lot more extensive. You can have multiple themes and different formats for those themes, depending on what you're looking to achieve. But this is just to give you an idea of how to take that persona and translate it into content. So now that we have our content, kind of ultimate content strategy and content themes, now we want to place it within the funnel, or place it, you can see everything looks very, very linear, similar when you saw the footprint of the journey. 3 different phases of essentially the buyer's journey funnel. One is awareness, one is consideration, and one is decision. And I liken this to essentially dating. So awareness would be you're sitting down at dinner and the conversation is very surface. Let's get to know, who are your siblings? Where do you work? Kind of more of a numbers game. Consideration phase would be, okay, do I want to, ultimately, do I want to go on a second date? This gets a little more personal, conversation is a little more aspirational. And then the decision phase is, okay, so do I want to continue dating this person? And so this is where you're really getting into, okay, is this a good fit? Are the mechanics right? Start asking those harder questions. And then ultimately conversion, and whatever conversion means for you, getting a house or getting a dog, essentially. But this is the way that I see it. And from an asset standpoint, awareness, or these 3 phases work in the same way. So awareness is, it's meaty, because keep in mind, in the awareness stage, this is going behind a form, or some of the content is going behind a form. You're actually asking somebody to give their information in exchange for this information. So it has to be meaty, but it still can be pretty surface, so reports and trends. Consideration is when you're, once again, personalizing it a little bit more. So case studies. Let's see how another member kind of improved their ROI in X. Or maybe a product webinar or a white paper. You're drilling in that much more. Decision phase, this is where remember the ask comes in. So it's, let's sit down and talk to you, or here, get a, kind of free evaluation, or here's the promo code if you take action right now. So you have your persona, you have the content that maps to the persona, and now you've mapped out each of you've mapped out your content themes in each of the different phases of the buyer's journey. Finally, this is the workflow. And remember, this is the mechanics. This is where you're really getting into the tool. So you have your foundational pieces where you're setting up the forms and the landing pages. I'm going to go quickly because I just realized we're over a little. You want to build, all your emails. You want to set up campaign tracking at the front end. Remember, this is tying back to your goals, any lead scoring. You want to put your lead magnet out there. So essentially, the juicy piece of content that you had in the form, you want to get it out there and start basically fishing for people. You want to have your list of channels, create your list of channels, drop the magnet. The workflow, visual workflow, or whatever platform you're using, this is about bringing everything together, all of your assets together, and setting specific criteria that's going to let them advance or not, or qualify them or not. And then finally, you're testing and you're hitting go. Now, step 4, a lot of people think, okay, it's automation. I can kind of just hit start and then let go. Not necessarily. It is going to automate a lot of things, but it's kind of on you to get weekly, monthly reporting. I always say weekly internally, and then if you have internal clients, maybe do that monthly. gather any key learnings, and keeping in mind conversions take a while. Even when you set the buyer journeys up, it perpetuates itself. But there are things that you can do and information you can collect in the meantime. You can collect information that rounds out your personas more. You can collect information on the content you're putting out there that may influence the track at a conference. There's a lot of intel you can get beyond just the conversion itself. So that is, okay, so last slide. I realize I'm a little bit over, so I'm going to open it up and let Destiny kind of help me out with any questions that have come in.
It looks like we have a question from Mary Ann, and the question is, what time frame are we typically talking about from awareness to the ask?
Awareness to the ask. I like to think in quarters. So I would say, all that foundational work, you can do that let me back it up. The foundational work, the strategic work that's happening on the back end, I would allocate, especially if you're doing this for the first time, I'd allocate about 2 months just to get all these pieces together. Once you hit start, I would say 3 to 4 months. Reason being, you run through and it's not to say that you can't, when you get to the end of the buyer journey, you look at who your leads are, where they fall kind of in the chain. It's not to say you can't start it again and run a completely different journey or run the journey again. But I like to do things in corners because it does, you can fit in your sequencing easily within kind of like by month. And it's nice to be able to stop and look at where everything's at holistically, not just on a weekly or monthly, but look at how it's done as a campaign, apply those learnings to the next campaign.
Thank you. Another question, how many personas should you have in your organization?
So I talked a little bit about the persona matrix, and the answer is it's really, I wouldn't slice and dice too much, but it really is based on the different types of themes and personalities you have as kind of your identified personas. So there's no exact number per se, but once again, going back to your persona is really dictated by content. So if X persona consumes content, both marketing content, so that's like a handbook, or programmatic content like a conference, in a different way than Y persona, then that dictates another persona. So there's not necessarily a number, but keeping those principles in mind, I think that'll probably help you.
Thank you. And then one last question. Once you have your content strategy in place, how do you build your content out?
So once the content strategy is in place, I think what's most important is identifying what content is you already have that exists. There's kind of 3 buckets. What content already exists? What content kind of exists, but probably needs to be a little repurposed, or the format needs to change? And what content needs to be created? Once you have that squared away, then you can start bringing in your content, your SMEs, your subject matter experts, to build out the content and fill in essentially those gaps. I always outline essentially what that content, your outline essentially is going to help on the SEO side as well. That's kind of a whole other discussion, but I always outline the content itself and make sure that those headers, or if it's a webinar, same thing, make sure that your slide deck includes kind of those key components, and then start producing the content from there.
Very good. Thank you so much, Amy. If you want to learn more, Amy, I think your next slide does have your contact info, and where we can get you the contact info and the email that I send out that will include your CAE certificate. the recording and also the slide deck. And also you can definitely meet Amy and Sammy at the upcoming Innovation Summit on February 28th, and you can actually get your customized survival kit. Anything else you'd like to add, Amy?
Yeah, I was just going to say too, I realize I've laid out a lot of information, and as I've said, we have plenty of different workbooks, and there's certainly more conversation to be had, and I'd love speaking to, with anybody that has questions. But we do have a nice little quiz if you're interested to know kind of where you are in terms of digital readiness, and where you are in terms of being equipped to kind of execute effectively on a buyer's journey. We have a nice little quiz that we're going to follow up with. If you want to take that quiz, it's really quick. It's literally, I did it. It's like 30 seconds. You'll get you'll get an answer immediately, and then you can bring those results to the Innovation Summit, and we can kind of continue on the conversation based on where you're at.